Let's get busy.
Podcast here at Baxter's 942 in the Highlands. Home away from home. I got a very cool segment. This is, as I'm recording, November 5th. It's Tuesday. It's election night. It's a big deal here in the state of Kentucky. Hopefully everything will go. Have you all seen
early returns? Looks like it's going to be a Republican landslide.
Are you serious?
Well, they've done the counties, the smaller population counties. So Northern Kentucky, Fayette County, Jefferson County still haven't sent anything in. They have not.
I didn't know that, but that was the early report.
54 to 49. Bevin in the lead with the outlying with rural counties, which isn't a surprise.
No, definitely not.
Nobody's shocked.
Well, that's not bad.
Right.
Yeah, that's heartening.
I'm chewing, but, help yourself. Ron Whitehead, fucking legend, as far as I'm concerned. Huge legend. And then my work wife here.
Oh, yeah.
My new
Hi, dear.
Hi.
Hello,
Cameron
Kevin.
Deeb.
Hello, Cameron. It's an honor to be on here tonight. Thank you.
So much to talk about, and I know we're kind of limited with your schedule, so let's jump right into it. You describe you. Who are you?
Let's round you out.
Okay. I
Hear
turn.
it straight from you.
I'm a Kentucky wild nature farm boy. I was born November 23rd,
Birthday coming up.
Thanksgiving Day, 1950.
No? Okay.
I'll be 69 on the 23rd this month. In the midst of the worst blizzard, which included lightning and thunder to ever hit Kentucky, I was the first person in my entire family to be born in a hospital. I grew up on a farm in Ohio County where Bill Monroe birthed bluegrass music.
Yeah.
I was born in Owensboro where Johnny Depp spent his first years.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing we had to talk about in the time I had association with him, but we can get to that. That's another story. I got so many stories to tell. There's so many. If you'll find out, usually you ask me one question and I fill up your entire program. So I want to be as succinct as possible so we can cover as much ground as we can here.
Your one question in 27 parts.
Yeah. Well, my kids, I got 3 grown kids, 7 grandkids, and 2 godchildren in Iceland where I lived for 2 years. And my kids, when they grew up,
Did you say Iceland?
Iceland,
Okay.
in Reykjavik, Iceland. And so my kids told me one day, I think it was on a Christmas, they said, Dad, we never told you this, but we're going to tell you now. When we were growing up, every time we'd bring a new friend over to the house, we always warned them, no matter what you do, don't ask Daddy one question or we won't have time to play. And so,
Well, you know what? I'm gonna at least ask one question, and hopefully we'll have time to play.
okay, it was funny. It was funny. Like Clayton Moose and Clayton Dark Star TV has joined forces with Storm Generation Films. Nick Storm, Nick's been working on this film on me, my life and my work for 9 years. Well, now Dark Star's joined forces with them, and we just did the final interview this morning. Clayton and I drove down to Beaver Dam, Kentucky, in Ohio County, where I grew up 2 hours away, and we had breakfast with Mama, who's 87 years old now.
Mama is in your mama.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My dad died 10 years ago. Okay. Mama's the oldest of 13. Daddy was one of 11. I come from a long line of farmers, coal miners, and strong women. And so anyway, one thing that you're going to find out is that I get off on tangents. See, I believe life is a tangent. All things show it. I thought so once, but now I know it. And I go out. I start in one place.
He's got mad rhymes.
I go out on a telling another story, it's related to the one I started with, but sometimes, I taught college for 20 years, and I'd have to ask my students sometimes, now remind me where I started. And so they would say 2 or 3 things.
In the beginning,
and
God created.
Then I'd get back. Oh, yeah, because I'm going to bring it back, but sometimes it just takes a little while.
Just a little nudge.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't.
You taught. What did you teach
So
in
Clayton.
school?
But what I was
okay.
what I was going to say is that Clayton has joined forces with me
Dark
on
Star
this
TV,
film,
yeah.
and it's moving into editing now, and there's like so much film footage from Iceland to California and in between and beyond. And so we shot this first piece Sunday. It's a short piece. We're going to do a Sunday, every Sunday, a little spot. And Clayton got one sentence out of his mouth, and I said, excuse me 1 second, before Clayton carries on, I just want to say one thing. And then, so that was the whole rest of the damn program. And then Clayton said, well, Ron said it all. That's all for today, folks. So it's like, it's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of embarrassing. But, I got stuff to tell. So I want to share it with folks.
I bet you back in the day when he was telling his stories, the camera reel, you'd see it, the end of the reel keep flipping.
Swap a roll.
Swap a roll.
There's the title of your biography, Shit to Say.
That's
Shit
funny.
to
That's
say.
funny. Yeah.
So, and I see you actually studied at Oxford?
Yeah, I won a couple of scholarships. I have a big
Well,
I got a big
that's okay.
problem with authority. And, I grew up, my dad was the godfather of the farming and mining community. He was a 10th degree badass and a 10th degree smartass. And I have great respect for both. And I do my best to be both myself. And, but anyway, where do we start that?
Well, it's in Oxford.
Okay, thank you. And so, and so
We're in class.
We are.
So my dad, people ask me, were you in the military? I said, I just look at him and say, look, I have a great respect for soldiers, especially for warriors. I said the first 17 years of my life would make Marine boot camp look like a training school for valet parking. And so it was, it was intense. But I was, from the earliest age,
But what was so intense
independent
about it,
and outspoken. My dad was, you did it his way or not, one way or another. I was
old school way.
A total old school.
Yeah.
I grew up between times, I grew up in the pioneer lands of Kentucky and in the science fiction age, modern times too.
Sure.
So I had one foot in each land. I've written about this stuff. I've written books just about those pioneer days, but I've written about all the other stuff as well. So anyway, started school as I was the youngest in my class. I started when I was 5, and because I wanted to go to school. We didn't have kindergarten, and I graduated when I was 17, and I dropped out of college after 3 years, and I was too wild, and I got sick and tired of professors telling students there's no such thing as original voice, as you have nothing to say. Basically, just spew what I say back to me, paraphrase it, but make sure and don't say it exactly the way I said it. That's plagiarism. And so I finally said, screw you. I dropped out. I worked every kind of job. I grew up working, hard, learning. I got the work ethic in me, and so I was searching for my dream. I knew from an early age I was a poet, walking across the fields, through the pastures, through the woods. We dwell in space. We measure space with time. But if that's all there was, life would be metronomic. It'd be tick-tock, boring. But there's that magical element called rhythm that provides the fire, the mojo, the juice, the sex of life, which makes life interesting. And so from the earliest age, I would walk with a rhythm, and words would come to me, and I would just start saying the words. And I would memorize poems and say those. I memorized songs, and I said those. But in a couple of frames, I would change those words to my own, and the next thing I knew, it was all mine. And so I just did that naturally from an earliest age. And so I started writing at an early age and started without any formal training in poetry and scansion the metrics of the grammar of poetry. And so, but I loved all kinds of poetry. And so I stayed out. I worked at the coal mines 3 times. I worked factory jobs. I worked construction. I managed businesses. And then I found my dream. And so I spent 8 years taking one step at a time, building a bridge from where I was to where I wanted to be. And I built the bridge, and I've been living my dream for 30 years. And so when I was in the process of building that bridge, when I went back to school after being out for 10 years, I started winning all kinds of awards, and I immersed myself into
awards for poetry,
for
or
writing,
okay.
and for my both academic and creative work. And I won 2 scholarships to study at Oxford's International Graduate School with Valentine Cunningham, the head of English literature. And so it was like, I was at the graduate school, but I was still an undergraduate. And so it was a great honor, and it was a major education. And when I knocked on Valentine Cunningham's door, he came to the door, and I was waiting for this. And we exchanged names. Then he looked down at my feet. I looked down, looked back up at him, and I said, "What?" He said, "You have shoes on." I didn't know people from Kentucky wore shoes. I said, "Ha ha, smart ass. We'll get along great." and guess what? We did. And his favorite singing group was the Everly Brothers, just across the Green River in Muhlenberg County from where I grew up in Ohio County.
Yeah.
Sure.
So anyway, and he played trombone in a big band. He loved big band music, and we had a great time. I love to debate with people. I don't give a damn who they are. But I learned by studying at Oxford with Valentine Cunningham, eyeball to eyeball, and I already knew it, but this confirmed it, that by God, I'll take anybody on in a debate. I don't give a shit who they are. And so it was good for me to do that. This rebel who's like, giving a finger to anybody in position of authority. But Mom and Daddy taught me to not look up to or down at anybody. We're all in this together, shoulder to shoulder, eyeball to eyeball. And so I've always looked at life that way. And nobody's better or worse than I am.
I'm with you.
We're all absolutely equal here. I don't give a damn who you are.
Define authority to you, though. Is it government? Is it law enforcement? I mean, what is authority to you?
No, absolutely not. I love my country, but I don't trust my government. And authority to me, okay, people always want to talk about politics with me. I've always been outspoken about politics. I can't stand politics, but I'm not
party.
I'm not naive. No, I don't like any of them. I'm an independent, but I have friends in both. But I don't like any of them because too often power corrupts, obviously so. And I believe it takes the balance of love, power, and wisdom in an individual in order for somebody to be a good leader of people. And it's rare to find a good leader.
Well, and I think that one of the important things that Americans they forget is that you never punch down. You always punch up.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times I think this consumer mentality that just pervades everything, and a lot of that has to do with design and marketing, which is my background. And, every time you look at something, people should remember that every time you look at something and there is any letter printed on it, whether it's this, that box, that card, somebody had to lay that out, send it to pre-press, and put it on a machine. And we forget that because it's so pervasive.
Right.
And in the same way that kind of consumer mentality has, I think, negatively affected us as a culture, it's because we forget to punch up.
Yeah.
And too often, whether it's a server or it's somebody, and I've worked both sides of the aisle. I've been the consumer and I've been the worker.
Yeah.
And it's hard
Yeah.
sometimes because you're the face of the screw up or the fuck up that people
Yeah.
want fixed.
Yeah. Here's my thing. I'm always for the down and out. I'm always for the working class. I'm for the people who have suffered to have what little they have, if they have anything. And for me, authority comes from one place and one place only, and that's from my heart. And my intuition, I listen to my intuition, which guides me through my heart. I learned a long time ago, I wrote a poem with the Dalai Lama titled Never Give Up. And it goes, never give up, no matter what is going on, never give up. Develop the heart. Too much energy in the world is spent developing the mind instead of the heart. Develop the heart. Be compassionate, not just with your friends, but with everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace. In the world and in your heart, work for peace. And I say again, never give up. No matter what is going on around you, never give up. And my encounter with the Dalai Lama, which happened in my first one in April of '94, changed my life. It's a strange and mysterious story, but I've learned through that experience, I knew it, but this confirmed it, and it brought it out to the forefront of my thinking and my awareness, is that the heart is the truth tester. And in our society and culture, most everything starts and ends in the mind. And the mind should be the last place most things go, like a poem or a story. If I'm writing it down, and I teach a special kind of technique in the writing workshops that I've led in Europe and the United States. And I learned it through a lot of research, a lot of questioning, a whole lot of people from all walks of life. And I wanted to find out, what's your favorite poem, story, song, movie, book, and why? And so I made it real simple. And it turned out that the favorites included all of what it means to be a human being. And so it starts with sex, where we all come from. So it's, that great story's poem's got to have, it's got to have that energy in it. It's got to have, we store our emotions in our gut, in our solar plexus, our navel, where we were connected to our mama in her belly. And so that energy's got to start with the sex in our groin. It's got to come up to our belly to get our emotions in there. More than anything, we are emotional beings. The best laid plans can go to hell in a heartbeat if our emotions get fucked up. We're in a relationship and we find out, our significant other, my woman, is stepping out on me, and I had no idea what was going on, but there it is right in my face. It's going to screw my life up miserably. And I talk about failure being my greatest success. I've learned more from failure than I've learned from anything.
Sure.
Because that changes me out of my normal way of living and thinking. So then that energy from your groin to your emotions and your gut comes up to your heart. That's the truth tester. Then comes up to your throat, where we speak. People talk, I hear all the time, the bullshit, I only write for myself. Nobody only writes for themselves. We, as human beings, have this in our DNA to communicate with our fellow human beings, to make human contact with others.
Sure.
And writing and poetry and song's the language of angels. Mm-hmm. It's a gift to us humans. All of music is. And if we tune ourselves into it, that's what it draws us to it. In times of happiness, times of grief, all the times. And music is poetry. The best music is poetry, and the best poetry is music. And I've worked with lots of musicians from all levels of music. Those starting out doing damn good work, and those at the top who started out that same way. And nearly all of them I work with want to be poets because they recognize that's like the pinnacle, the peak of where what's right in their craft,
right,
in their skill comes from.
I love that idea where, art is our way to decorate space, and music is our way to decorate time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So then the throat and then the forehead where we see everything. That's where all our moving images come through, is the gland, the energy center in our forehead, then the crown and the top of our head down to our tailbone. And then we open ourselves up to this energy, this light, this lightning light. And but the center of it all, writing, like I teach, that first thought, best thought, spontaneous. You have an idea, you're moved, your muse comes to you with a story. You wake up at 3 a.m., you've had a dream, you gotta write it down and honor that dream and help it reach fruition by writing it down. And then the editing, though, comes last. And a lot of people think, well, this is the gift of God. You know, I had this I received it in a dream. It's done, but it's still it's got to be edited.
Do you need something, Ron?
Do you have any ginger ale? I do. Could I have a ginger ale, please?
Okay.
And so anyway, the heart is my final authority, and that's really my only authority. I tell people when they want to bring politics up, you know, I'm an Abraham Lincoln Republican. In 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation freeing the slaves. I'm a Franklin Delano Roosevelt Democrat. In 1935, he signed the Social Security Act, giving all of us, I should say, the only retirement most of us will ever have.
Right.
Now, have you ever watched the Ken Burns documentaries about the 30s and the crash and all that?
I've watched some of them. I just watched the 8-part Origins of Country Music documentary, which is like one of the most amazing, best documentaries.
Man, he's unreal. But one of the things that I really loved about that was that before the 1929 crash, right, before Black Monday, the United States government didn't care who you were.
Yeah.
They didn't at all.
That's right.
They literally, the federal government let the market decide whether you prospered or okay or dead. That was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the crash happened, the inflation, the bubble, that's when the government, that's when FDR started to really pick up.
Good,
And that's why, you know, the Koch brothers,
Koch brothers,
cock-sucking brothers, and McConnell, and
Moscow Mitch.
and Putin's puppet.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Trump.
he hates that Moscow Mitch.
And he's
Good.
You know, McConnell, more than anybody in this country, has already sold us to China, who is like the greatest threat.
Sure.
To
they're the most
democracy. They got the power.
They've got the most acute cyber warfare.
Oh man!
And they have a huge standing military.
No, absolutely. I mean, they could just on their physical strength alone can walk all over Russia.
Sure.
Russia is really not a threat, but their goal, which they're achieving, is to dismantle us from the inside, which is always a threat to any empire. That's why that's how they've all fallen.
Sure.
So,
well, it's the hubris that I think that we all recognize now from 2016, where there was a great number of people who said, Hillary's got this. I don't need to show up at the polls.
No, and that's just today. I mean, I saw these people, young people and old people alike, across the state being interviewed on KET and saying, you know, it just doesn't matter to me enough. And politics is so corrupt. I don't vote.
Well, that's why we have to overturn Citizens United.
How fucking stupid, you know? And so anyway, to finish what I was saying, and thank you.
I'll get you on tangents too.
No, and I appreciate that. And I'm a Benjamin Franklin independent, that genius who more than anyone birthed the original Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights documents on which our country still barely stands. But more than anything, I'm a Kentucky farm boy anarchist. The only government for me is the government of individual responsibility and helping my neighbor. And ultimately, and the heart is my guide in that process. If everybody lived that way, we wouldn't need a damn government. That's the way I feel about government. But I'm not, I know the world is what it is.
I got you.
And so you got to deal with it.
Sure.
So that's the other side of that story.
Let's go back. Let's talk about some of your accomplishments. Can you right now rattle off how many how much poetry you've put out there?
I got
Ballpark.
30 books, 40 albums, and but I've produced a few. I've published hundreds of titles. I've produced a couple thousand, at least, events in past decades in Europe and the USA, including some big ones, including the 24, 48, 72, and 90-hour nonstop music and poetry insomniacathons. A 48-hour one at New York University in 94 to kick off their week-long 50-year celebration of the Beat Generation. In 96, America's leading historian Douglas Brinkley, who I've done a lot of work with, and I produced the New Orleans Insomniacathon at the New Orleans Contemporary Arts Center, 48 hours nonstop. That was the daytime, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and at night we did the Howlin' Wolf Club, 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. Incredible event. The people we had performing there. I did a TV interview with George McGovern, who I voted for back in '72. Yeah, that was crazy. Amy Carter was there with George, Jimmy Carter's daughter,
Right.
and so. But we had just a lot of famous. One thing I learned when I produced my first open mic poetry reading at Anthony's by the Bridge.
Oh, wow.
In 92.
Yeah.
400
Nice.
people came that night.
Troll bar now.
Yeah. 400 people came, and a couple musicians came up to me and said, about a third of the way through, said, "You mind if we do a song?" I said, "Hell yeah, go ahead." And they did, and I saw the energy in the room shift. And so I realized at that moment, and what I did was from then on, anytime possible, I made my events music and poetry, poetry and music, because you bring in two separate crowds and they intermingle, and it creates a new
It's a
energy
new
that
creativity.
nobody's done.
Cross-pollinate it.
People go away inspired to create new work, songs and poems. So anyway, I've done that. I produced the official Hunter S. Thompson tribute, December 12th, 1996, at Memorial Auditorium on 4th Street here in town to a standing room only audience. And I brought in Hunter, his bodyguard, Sheriff of Pitkin County, Bob Broadus, Hunter's mom, Virginia, who I became friends with at Hunter's request. He wanted me to watch over her because people were, he said, approaching her, acting like they knew him. They were his friends and pumping her for information to write unapproved biographies of him. And I went over and started visiting with her, and then we became friends, and I visited with her a lot. And she would always say, Virginia, she was retired as the head librarian at the main library, Hunter's first library. And she would always say, Ron, she had an apartment on Zorn Avenue, and then they put her, she had to be moved because she couldn't get around by herself anymore. She had to
Now,
use a
didn't they do the latest fest down there at the library?
the last 3 years. Denny Humphrey
Yeah.
and I at the Monkey Wrench. Denny and I have been friends for a long time. Well, we started the Gonzo Fest. We just finished our 9th year this
Ninth
past
year, yeah.
We started at the Monkey Wrench, but my favorite place we had it was down on the river by the walking bridge. We had it there for 2 years. That's just like the best place.
Oh, yeah, that is good.
And then, but there started being some issues there, political issues. And so I talked with the then director of the main library, Jim Bland. He's now moved on because of the budget crisis. He's running the libraries in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him he had a lot of creativity about Hunter's mom. And I said, first of all, are you familiar with Hunter S. Thompson? I've read one book by him. So I filled in the blanks for him. He got fired up and read a bunch of books, read about her connection to the library. And so we got to the point, we've had it down there for 3 years now. Because of the budget crisis, this past year we had it on Thursday evening at the Fraser History Museum. This year I called the Year of Gonzo in Kentucky because there were 3 major exhibits. The UK Art Museum had a Ralph Steadman Gonzo exhibit, and then that Friday night, and then the Fraser History had a museum had a major exhibit. So we had celebrated Hunter's birthday on that Thursday, Gonzo Fest night. Friday night, we had it to JB Speed Art Museum because they had an exhibit, which I think is just coming down or close to it, on Hunter and Gonzo. Excellent. All these exhibits are like the best. And it was packed. It blew everybody away at the Speed. Me too. Standing room only at the JB Speed Art Museum. And we had in the grand hall there, we had Stephen George, the president of Independent Radio Partnership. He emceed the 4-panel discussion to 400 or 500 people. And Timothy DeNevy, who I mentioned earlier, who the author of Freak Kingdom, the best book on Hunter S. Thompson to date, about the years 62 to 72, and the era when Hunter came into his own as a writer. It reads like an action suspense thriller. I recommend that book to everybody.
Because that was the Rolling Stone years, right?
He was on, he
70, 71, 72.
That was that's when Hunter S. Thompson put Rolling Stone magazine on the map.
Right.
So Timothy was there. Juan Thompson, who Hunter's son, only child, who's moved to Louisville, was there, and me, and we talked about and I went last, and I told them they wanted to know the history of my work with Hunter, and I told them, and I said, this is the end of an era and the beginning of a new era, and we've got to find a permanent location for the Hunter S. Thompson. It's got to be the Mecca. Louisville needs to be the Mecca for everything Hunter S. Thompson for the entire world, like the Ali Center is.
Right.
And I said it needs to be at the J.B. Speed Art Museum, the Fraser History Museum, or the Louisville Free Public Library. The problem with the library, and Jim Blanton had an architect draw plans to expand the library and because one of my suggestions was to change the name of the library to the Hunter S. Thompson Louisville Free Public Library, knowing that would be a war. But he suggested, let's expand the north wing, the modern part of it, and make it the theme of it. Everybody who visits is here to find their own original voice, own creative voice. And we'll call it the Virginia and Hunter S. Thompson North Wing of the Louisville Free Public Library.
Nice.
Perfect.
Sure.
And so I agreed to it. All we had to do was raise the money, millions of dollars.
Sure.
That's always the issue. And so now, I've been thinking since the Speed had this exhibit, they got the money.
Sure.
Let's have us use one of the branches you got. They got the room too to create a permanent space.
And they've got a lot of new energy,
Yeah,
since,
they do.
since the
They're getting
update
young
and the
people
overhaul.
in. They're working hard to change it.
Are they still doing the free Sundays?
Yeah, they're working hard to change it from, the old, rich, white, River Road, Louisville women,
Right.
the only ones
I don't know if that's going to go anywhere.
who
go away.
run it. Yeah, but it's been an obstacle and a problem for me. So anyway,
Ron,
I brought Juan in. Almost done with that. I brought Johnny Depp, Warren Zevon, Roxanne Pulitzer, David Amram, a living 88-year-old legend, David Amram, who I've done a lot of work with, Douglas Brinkley. I couldn't have done that without Doug, and an army of college students who worked with me and took care of separate areas. I put Hunter up at the penthouse at the Brown Hotel where he wanted to stay. He wanted to have it at Memorial Auditorium because when he was growing up, that's where the popular bands played.
Sure.
And it's a beautiful space with the red velvet seats and everything. And so I put everybody up for a week. Everybody was here for a week. And talking about some wild stories. I could write a book. Juan, in his book, stories I tell myself growing up with Hunter S. Thompson, it's about his dad and his relationship with his dad. He devotes a chapter to that event, and he said that was the bridge that led to healing with my dad. Because I asked him to write. I asked him to write a tribute to his dad, and present it at the event, at that 4-hour event. And right before it was time for him to go on, and I edited his piece. He wrote it. It was excellent. He got me to the back of the stage, and he said, Ron, I can't do this. And he was turning a shade of green.
Right.
And I thought he was going to puke on me. And real nice guy. And I grabbed his shoulders, looked in his eyes, and I said, you're going to do this. This will be the most important thing for your dad at this event.
Yeah.
And so he turned around, went out there, and did it. And you'd never know he was nervous. I stood by Hunter while Juan presented his tribute and Hunter cried during it, it tore him up completely. So that was one of the biggest events, but there have been plenty of others.
Sure. Let me do a tangent right here. Ron, what do you think Hunter would love most about 2019?
Good question.
What's the one shiny nugget of either culture or current events or politics that Hunter would really latch on to?
I personally think that some people have said, this is crazier than anything even Hunter would be able to wrap his head around, and it is a nightmare beyond all imagination and all reckoning. What is happening in this country right now?
Right. The absolute constitutional crisis.
No, it is. We have a
we're
traitor.
Uncharted,
we have a total
uncharted
traitor
land.
in the White House.
Sure.
And I don't care what party you are. Wake up. And I know, his followers. 60 million people voted for him. Most of them still believe the same way that they did when he ran for office.
Sure.
I'm going to digress a little bit, and we're going to keep talking about that. But help me understand how the evangelicals, these Christians,
It's unbelievable. I grew up.
They on his bandwagon. This is a
Unbelievable.
guy that has
Here's why.
committed adultery.
Here's the reason.
Done every kind of sin that there is out there.
Here's the reason. Some people actually have recognized this and mentioned it. But I grew up, and I was raised a Southern Baptist. My family all still Southern Baptist. I started questioning everything when I was a kid, and I was usually told, Sunday school teacher, go get the preacher. He'd take me out of the room and say, Ronnie, some things we just don't need to question. We just need to accept. And that just wasn't good enough for me.
Sure.
And so, but when in my early teens, somebody gave me a copy of Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. And I was like blown away by that book, and I was so excited about it. I shared it with the preacher, and he was like, no, this is evil. That was wrong. And of course, that was just really pushed me on, because I was always a curious soul, and I was going in all those directions anyway. But most of these evangelicals are just living for the end of the world.
Sure.
And they are hoping that it happens in their lifetime.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
they
their
think that
eschatological outlook.
Yeah, and Trump's the key to ending it all.
Sure.
That's why they're supporting him.
Sure. So
That's
they keep hurtling towards home in their words.
And home is
And
the
they're
doorway's
waiting
death.
for this rapture to happen.
Yep, the rapture where they're going to be lifted up, and we're all of us dumbass fuckers going to be left behind.
They've
It is
thrown
sick.
all their chips in, right? And so
Now's the time.
every little bit of currency that any person of faith that follows Trump today is gone. It evaporated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the hardcore Trump people, they're not afraid to let you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And they're going to say, and here's the false flags, right? Here's the one, the MSN. You heard that one? Mainstream or MSM and mainstream media,
Fake news.
the MSM,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable that they would allow themselves
To believe
to
all they believe
cachet
lies.
everything.
Yeah.
Your entire life
Yeah.
in the Christianese, it's witness,
Yeah.
right? So their witness, what they're projecting out to the world because of their salvation,
Yeah.
gone. It's
Yeah.
evaporated.
Yeah.
We cannot trust. We cannot believe. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
You can't talk to these people, and that's the breakdown in the whole thing. No discourse anymore. It's gone.
Well, here's the other thing. Let's be realistic too. Those fuckers have always been here. It's just now
They've been around. They've been waiting.
able to now, come out and be
it is.
themselves.
I don't-
Go public. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And
They come out of their
there's-
closet.
Exactly.
There's an admittance now.
Right.
They're look, the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon males in America, if you asked guys across the board, they would want to have this fake ideal of a wife that stays at home, perfect kids, dinner at 5. They would think they want that, because that's what they have been raised to
Yeah,
believe.
conditioned to believe
But
that's
that
the only way.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
And don't forget, white is right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And now we're
Do you see
living-
the one where the Anti-Defamation League or the Southern Poverty Law Center labels them as a hate group? They just tried to film a video at the Emmett Till Memorial. Have you heard about the Emmett Till Memorial?
No, yeah, I know about it. Yeah.
Well,
I haven't heard
it's been shot up
Yeah.
3 times
yeah,
now
and they finally replaced it.
with a 500
Yeah.
pound like bulletproof. They had to make the sign for the Emmett Till Memorial bulletproof because it kept getting shot up.
Yeah.
And they added alarms and they added a live stream security video.
Yeah.
And so they were there, and as soon as you're there for an X amount of time, the alarm goes off.
Wow.
And then when they heard the alarm, they scattered. But then they also boasted, and this is terrible, they went to the bridge in Selma, and then they went to the Little Rock Elementary School and filmed their propaganda videos. And that's all it is. It's propaganda.
Yeah.
It's American terrorists.
Very, very racist country we
Yeah.
have here.
No, we're living in a racist, white supremacist ruled country. The South has risen again, and now they're not just ruling the South; they're ruling the entire country.
Sure.
And
But
that's
what's your take on, when people are talking about, impeachment or, getting him out of office or whatever, and they're bringing up fucking Civil War, and I mean,
they're threatening if Trump is brought down, nobody's going to go quietly into the dark night.
Sure.
There's going to be trouble, and
I've got a prognostication, Ron. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
All right. So I try to keep abreast of everything.
Yeah.
And I think that I believe, and I'll go on the record as saying that I think Trump's going to resign. I
Man,
think that
would be the easy way.
I think
tell
that
you.
he's literally going to hit the end of the line. That the data and the materials that they have on him, nobody could eschew.
going to weigh too
The
heavily.
Republicans are going to have to jettison him. But the only way that he will resign is if they make a deal and they prosecute him for the very slimmest of slim
Yeah.
infractions.
Yeah.
Because
But-
he's trying to beat a RICO. And you can't, I mean, Capone taught us you don't beat a RICO
Yeah.
ever.
Uh-huh.
What
Yeah.
is now? How about this? Does he go out if he resigns? Does he go out and he tells his sheep,
Nah,
to
It's going to be a
calm
Spiro
down?
Agnew. It's going to be
yeah,
a Spiro
okay.
Agnew, too. I think Pence is going to get looped in.
Yeah.
He's going to have to bounce.
Yeah.
So they'll bring somebody else in.
Yeah.
Trump knows what's up, and then he'll resign.
here's the thing.
It's Machiavellian
Yeah.
to the nth degree.
In some sick way, I'm really. There's a part of me that just is very interested in seeing how all this plays out.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
no.
I mean,
yeah.
because it's obviously it's a shit show, it's a shit storm.
Sure. But it's the Kardashians in the White House.
It is fucking reality TV
Sure.
that hit the White House.
But but even beyond that, I think it's high drama. I think it's Shakespearean ultimately.
Sure.
I mean, this is like tragedy.
This is next level for sure.
No shit. I
For
think it's
sure.
gone further than the reality show. level.
Although the Mook, the Scaramucci,
Scaramucci.
yeah. he's
my
become
guy
quite the
now.
thorn
He's
in
my guy
Trump's
now.
side now.
I am
He's
on board
flipped
with
the
him.
script on him. He's not on
Have
board
you
anymore.
Have you seen him lately on CNN?
I've been following him, man.
Yeah, he is.
He's got some pretty
Yes.
interesting things to say because he thinks that Trump's ultimately going to resign too. But the only way he will do it is to leverage as a private citizen
He can maintain his privacy and his wealth.
right.
Yeah.
Because look, whether we like it or not, what ultimately can happen is if they get a plea bargain deal down, everything else can go away.
Yeah.
And if the federal
At
government
this
tells
point,
us
I don't give a shit
state,
about that.
Southern,
Get the motherfucker out of office.
Sure.
And then let's let him.
and we'll figure it
That,
out.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah,
feel the
yeah.
same way. Let him have his fucking wealth. I mean, somebody's going to put a bullet
yeah.
in his fucking head once he's out of office. I think it wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Well, he
but-
lost his appeal for the
The taxes,
accountants
yeah.
for his tax
Yeah,
returns. So
Yeah.
he's gonna push it. I think they'll fast track it through the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And Supreme Court will decline it. They're not going to overturn a lower court.
Yeah.
So then his accountants and his lawyers have said that they would comply or be compelled by whatever the court said. Yeah. So he knows.
You get into that, you'll be able to see all the Russian connections.
All it is a war of attrition at this now.
Yeah.
But
what's going to be
Which
funny
for me,
is,
it makes for a great podcast.
Sure.
yeah, no,
for
it does.
sure.
No, it does. It's helped the whole
Somebody always makes money in a tragedy.
social media industry. God, it's hilarious. But what's going to be funny to see is all these ultra fundamentalists, evangelicals. What the fuck are they going to do when their leader says,
exactly.
fuck you,
When-
I'm going to my ivory tower. I don't give a fuck what happens to you.
Right.
He doesn't give a fuck about them.
He
at all.
never did.
Yeah. So I mean, and they're getting played.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting
Totally.
played. By him. And those people, they're gonna feel it, and that's gonna hit like a.
Do you know what you do though?
Go
To the churches that promoted, voting Republican or voting for Trump,
Yeah.
tax them.
exactly.
That's what I've said all along.
Tax
That's
their
what-
land.
There's no separation
tax
of
their
church and state.
income. If you vote now, look.
Yeah.
If you're Southern Baptist in Ludlow, Kentucky,
Yeah.
and you never said anything, and your parishioners can do whatever you want,
Right.
no, need.
You're
good.
Yeah.
But his new spiritual advisor is a snake oil.
I
the
know.
woman-
I saw that.
the
Unbelievable.
woman, God, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's literally to the point where you're just like, how we've literally become idiocracy.
Yeah.
But here I got an unpopular opinion.
All right.
No.
The Epstein didn't kill himself memes.
Yeah.
They're on my nerves. They're on my nerves.
Well, here's my take on that.
They're hilarious, and I'm
Yeah.
going to say I've seen a lot of them, and people are making their own now.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that Epstein killed himself
I don't need it.
because 2 guards and a malfunctioning camera
Yeah.
from 2 angles.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't happen. But these Epstein didn't kill himself memes, they've worn me out, man. Because look, he was a terrible, horrible pedophile.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I'm going. Is that
But
who
he
gives
was
a-
not. But
I don't
he
give a
was
fuck who
not
killed him.
a traitor, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard the conspiracy theory on him? Here, in a nutshell, he never traded. He was never an options trader. He never did anything in the stock market. He was only in the business of blackmail. He would wire all of his places all over the world with cameras. He'd bring powerful men in, have scantily clad, very, very young women in there because something would happen.
Yeah.
And as soon as it did, he had the video.
Yeah.
Next day, he'd call him up and say, I'm going to need $5 million every quarter
Yeah.
to stay quiet and make sure that this doesn't leak out.
Yeah.
Because if you process a $20 million check,
Yeah.
everybody's going to go, wait, what? What's going on? Where did this come from? Why'd it go?
Yeah.
If you process $5 million on trading $1 billion in options,
Yeah.
they don't bat an eye.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so,
interesting.
So, but I miss.
It's a theory. It's a theory.
All right.
But the theory, because a lot of the heavyweight Wall Street people
Yeah.
haven't traded with him.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the back end capability
Yeah.
of being able to transfer stocks to buy and sell.
That makes sense to me.
They believe that he actually just had a couple people working
Yeah.
that would accept these
Yeah.
wire transfers and these payments.
Yeah. But he
And
was
then-
definitely knocked off.
Well, let's go back to you real quick. Toot your horn. You've award-wise nominated for Pulitzer, Nobel Peace. I mean, am I right?
Nobel Literature.
Literature.
Yeah.
Okay.
By Dr. John Rocco, who's reviewed many of my titles. He's a professor at SUNY Maritime in New York, and he started reviewing my work. He encountered my work through John Titel, who was a professor at Queens in New York. I guess he's retired now, but I knew John. He was the editor of American Book Review, and John reviewed one of my books years ago and gave it a great review. And so that kind of opened the door. I became friends with John, but John told Dr. John Rocco about my work, and John started doing checking and everything, and he loved it and started reviewing my work. And so he decided to nominate me, and so it's just like, and said
Very
some really
cool.
nice things about me.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, all this stuff is just kind of weird to me. But I appreciate all of it. I'm honored by it. And my primary interest in life is to, all I want to do is create new work, create my work and share it with people. That's it.
Right.
I'm totally non-materialistic, always have been. Mama taught me how to give without anticipation of reciprocation. If you give anything and expect anything back, it's a loan, it's not a gift. And so I learned from an early age to give, and giving is one of the most important things you can do in life. And I had mentors all my life from the time I was a little boy, and I believe in mentorship, and so I chose a long time ago to be a mentor as well. And I still have mentors to this day, and so I choose to be a mentor. I think when we're all dirty potatoes floating in the same tub of polluted water, and the more we bang into each other by openly, honestly sharing the stories of our lives, the more we come clean. So I think when one of us is lifted up, we're all lifted up. And
In 2020, the Outlaw Poet is going to come out, right?
yeah, it's finally scheduled to come out in spring of 2020.
You ready for that? Is it going to do you justice?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's my problem.
Well, you've been involved though quite a bit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
From what I'm
not,
getting at.
I feel confident now with the state. It's where it is now. Folks working on it now. That it will be a fine film, and it's actually gotten to the place where I hoped it would be. This is the original American folktale. America's built on folktales. The pioneers, immigrants, people who come to this country with
oral
nothing,
history,
with nothing, and with with their ideas and with their hands, build their lives. And so that's what my story is. I grew up on a farm in Kentucky. I'm truly a farm boy, and I could have followed that path, but I had this other
little bit of hippie though.
vision.
A little bit of hippie.
Hippie and punk, and it's just like anti-authority. I believe in, okay, it's a double-edged sword. I was raised to be a warrior by my dad, and came to understand gentleness through my mother, and compassion. And so I totally believe in live and let live. I think everybody should have the freedom to do whatever the hell they want to choose to do, as long as they're not hurting somebody. But that's where you draw the line. When people start hurting people, especially those who can't help themselves,
Sure.
Then I'm gonna say something about it or do something about it, all I can to make it stop.
Sure.
So I don't like injustice. I've been outspoken about that all my life. I can't stand crimes against children, the elderly, the sick.
Sure. The disadvantaged, underadvantaged.
I know it. It's just terrible. And so...
What do you think would surprise your parents the most about kind of, 2019, 2018? Kind of what do you think technology-wise would be the biggest kind of surprise for maybe your dad? What do you think would really just surprise, blow his mind? Smartphones, internet.
Yeah, I
don't know. Would your
don't-
dad be one of those that likes to get on those apps and swipe right, swipe left?
No, I don't. My wife and I choose to not have smartphones, and
Good for you.
I know everybody's got one, and there's the little phone that I got. I had texting turned off after a week, and I realized that it was
too
gonna-
much.
It was just going to be a nonstop thing, and so I
Sure.
just had it turned off. I've never used it since, and
You prefer to call or
that
email?
was several years ago.
Well, no, because you're on social media.
Email, and I stay on Facebook
Yeah, 'cause that's how we talk.
because Facebook is because you can express your creative self more fully on
can.
Facebook
Sure.
than Instagram, which is basically for photographers
Sure.
who have
It's an
smartphones.
image,
right.
And I don't have a smartphone.
Sure.
My grandson, I have 7 grandchildren. My grandson Max put me an Instagram. I'm on Instagram, but I'm not on there.
Sure.
He put me up there.
Now you can hook up Instagram to your Facebook, so when you
can.
publish on Facebook,
I know,
goes,
but I don't want to. I'm not interested in it,
Right.
and I just stay on Facebook reluctantly, but I stay on
Enough
because
to-
I can communicate with friends all over the world in an
Sure.
instant.
In an instant.
and so it's a way for me to share.
Because
and
you are an international person, though.
Well, and I love that. I collaborate with people all over the world, and I have for a long time. And I like to stay in communication with people. And I was the first U.S. citizen to receive, only the fourth person to be honored with the UNESCO Writer in Residence grant for Estonia. So I spent April and May in Estonia. They put me up in a museum. I had the first floor to myself, and my wife came over for 10 days, and we visited, and it was the most intensely productive, creative weeks of my life. I got so much work done while I was there, not only with those folks, but only projects I was working on, and my wife and I wrote a book of poems, 31 poems, Nights at the Museum, born out of my experiences there. We immersed ourselves in the culture, the history, the poetry, the people of Estonia, an amazing story. Only 28 years a democracy, free and independent of the Soviet Union. And their entire history is incredible. So we incorporate all that into the poems we wrote. We commissioned an artist to do the art for the book. We just picked up the art at the Tim Faulkner Gallery. Monica Stewart's her name. She's graduated from MFA program at U of L. Incredible art. She's into mythology and folklore in particular, which is a lot of folklore in this book. So we got her. Doris Karava, Estonia's leading poet and translator, has translated some of my work. I gave a reading with her when I was over there, and and there was the international annual literature events they held when I was there, and there was a speaker from Russia, one from Germany, and one from the U.S. I was from the U.S. The place was packed. All the TV news people were there, and on the big screen behind me, they had everybody wore a headset, so you were translated. I could understand the Russian and the German.
Right.
It was immediately translated, and so it had Ron Whitehead USA on the big screen behind me when I was talking. And Doris translated my piece, though, into Estonian, the piece I wrote ahead of time and read at that event. And there was a professional actress they got brought in who read the Estonian part of my address. So that was really nice.
Oh, wow.
But Doris loves the book, Nights at the Museum, so much. She said this is not only important for Estonia, it's important for the world. So she's going to translate it, and is looking for a publisher, so it'll be published in both English and Estonian. So anyway,
when is that coming out?
She's got it in the hands of a publisher right now. So
Okay.
maybe next year we'll be going back over for a book release. We think so. We hope so. It's going to be brought out in the
You're
U.S.
staying as busy as ever, too, aren't you?
Yeah.
You getting busier? You feel like you're getting busier?
Yeah, well, every time I have learned that, I haven't learned much, but I have learned that every time I say, that's it, I'm not doing anything else, I'm disappearing. It's just like
moment.
there's a flood
But then
wave.
tomorrow-
There's a flood wave of new stuff that almost immediately comes in.
Right.
Invitations that I just cannot resist.
You got
I
to get
say-
it while it's hot.
That's right.
Legalization of cannabis was a big deal in this state. You good for that?
Oh, hell. I never thought it should have been outlawed. I've always been for the legalization of marijuana.
Fucking Nixon.
Full.
I'm for the legalization of all drugs, and I think it should be up to the adult, to the individual adult, as to what the hell we do.
Sure.
The government doesn't
In the
have
privacy
any,
of our own homes.
Yeah, the government doesn't have any right to, as long as we're not hurting somebody.
It's education. It comes
Sure.
down to
Yeah.
educating.
Yeah.
I
people
think
about
we
this
also
shit.
need to have a moratorium, an 18 to 24 month moratorium on all legislation from the president that gets impeached, because we need to go through and make sure that all of their little laws and stuff and all their, in Trump's case, all the judges that they're jamming, 157 I
Yeah.
think is the
Yeah.
number now, 157 judge appointment people. So I think that we just need to have a moratorium, and we need to go through, and then when it's found, which it inevitably would be, which would Nixon's war on drugs could have been rolled back.
Yeah.
We need to wait and decide whether we're actually going to do that legislation or roll it back.
We need to backtrack, and we need to get all the people who've been put in jail for drug crimes, possession of marijuana, out of prison.
Well, you have to commute sentences and then
that started.
I
just saw
pardons.
where like 400 people sentences were commuted somewhere. I just saw that on the news today.
Yeah,
and,
I saw that. I think it's Philadelphia.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. So,
but I have to say, from our last conversation, having done some more research now, the only thing that I want now, I don't want decriminalization. I don't want any sort of. We can work on that.
Okay.
But as far as cannabis legislation goes in the United States, we need a full exemption.
I agree.
A full and complete exemption, like we do for tobacco. Right. And like we do for alcohol.
Yeah.
Because all three of those things can be considered kind of in that same realm, ethos, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Legalize gambling, legalize marijuana, tax the churches. You have no economic problems for the state right there. And you know what? I've done 6 tours in the Netherlands. It's like, I was invited to live there. And it's like, they know more about our culture than we know about our own culture. And it's such a civilized country. There's almost no crime.
Christiania, it looks like Christiania is going to actually go under as far as disappear because the amount of crime and stuff just in that. Because it started out as a commune.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That grew into a
true.
neighborhood.
That's true. There are some rough spots.
But that is only because of the lack of kind of the public support for that area. They just kind of let that area go.
They did, yeah.
And it had a lot of tourism.
And some bad people took over. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But that's
where
an
there's
exception.
tourists, there's always money.
That's an exception to the rule, and the tourists are usually the problem.
Right.
But I lived in Iceland for 2 years. I performed in all the Scandinavian countries, and I love Scandinavia. I love the Netherlands. I love Ireland. But Scandinavia, their social democracy is the most efficient form of government so far in the world, and they have the highest standard of living in the world, and the lowest amount of crime, and the lowest amount of homelessness, and the lowest prison population, and
the counterpoint to that is ultimately population density. Will it scale? And I think that ultimately some of the better things could, but there's just a population density difference. Between Scandinavian countries and Europe and North America.
And the United States is different than any place else. And, I don't know. We're in such a mess now. I don't know if we'll ever find our way out of it.
Sure.
I was born hopeful, and I'm always hopeful. And I think, we have fucked the world up royally since the advent of the Industrial Revolution in the mid-19th century. But, if we have fucked it up in this period of time, say 170 years. Well, my feeling is with advanced technology, with fresh minds, new minds, young minds of all ages, that we can clean the mess up in 20 or 30 years.
Sure.
I think we can, and I'm hopeful that we will. Will we? I don't know. And I'm always hopeful, and I'm always wary. At the same time, I'm a warrior who believes in peace, but I believe in self-defense, and, I am going to defend a person who can't defend themselves, whether it's my family or not. And I had my first gun. I was given my daddy gave me my first gun when I was 2. The first thing I was taught was
with bullets and everything.
Was safety. Well, it was
Could it have used bullets? A real gun.
A 22. But it was a small rifle.
Sure.
But I was taught gun safety, and Mama said in this interview we did this morning, I found out some things about myself I didn't know. She said, well, Ronnie could, it was a great interview, and she said, well, Ronnie could spoke in complete sentences, and he could walk, and he had potty trained himself before he was 1. And and she said I breastfed him for 3 months, and
He got bored with that.
And then I gave him a bottle for 3 months, and then I acted like I threw it out the window, and she said, it's gone. She said, I said it's gone. And then Ronnie said, it's gone. And I never said another word about it,
Didn't
never
look
asked
back.
for another bottle. I just went on there, started drinking milk out of a glass, and everything was fine.
Right,
So,
right.
There's a thing called common sense. And as far as guns go, I believe, in the freedom to have guns and defend your damn self. And but you need to learn gun safety first, and then how to shoot first
always
before
comes
you
down
go
to
before you
educating
go
you.
hunting.
Yeah.
Before you go hunting, and that's the third step, the
Right.
final step.
Exactly.
And
See, the
then
one
you
thing-
learn how to skin what you kill,
Sure.
and you eat what you've killed,
Sure.
and you have more
Not
of an
just for sport.
an indigenous approach to the whole thing. Yeah.
Sure. The one thing that I would like, though, as far as the Second Amendment, ongoing, everlasting gobstopper of a debate in America is liability insurance on your weapons,
Right.
on all weapons
Yeah.
except for shotguns, because you can literally use a shotgun to hunt and to defend,
Yeah.
but everything else, handgun,
Sure.
high power
That's
rifles,
a good call.
this assault type rifle,
Yeah,
AR-15
assault.
type rifle, and all that
yeah.
garbage. It is a rifle.
Yeah.
It is a rifle, and it takes ammunition for a rifle.
Yeah.
But you still need liability insurance on it.
Yeah.
Ron, I know you said you were trying to.
Yeah,
keep
it's at
this
that time.
Yeah, so let's do
See,
this.
I'm
I
used
know,
to
I
long
love it. You know what?
conversations, and we could
You
stay
know
here
what?
all night.
We're gonna.
talking.
There's more to do, but before I let you go, I do this what I call a little round of shots, rapid fire, quick Q&A.
Okay.
First concert you attended?
Come
on.
No, this rapid. It wasn't the first one, but it's the first one that really stands out. I started going to concerts at an early age, and I love music. I love music.
Yeah.
And I love every kind of music.
Right.
And I got the whole story about music for you and in my life. But one that just came to mind as soon as you said that is I saw Led Zeppelin at the original Madison Square
shit.
Garden.
Oh, wow.
And-
74?
No, it was before that. It was in, I want to say 70. And it was incredible
I saw
because
the ticket price was like $2.50,
$8.
$3.
it was dirt cheap. It was dirt cheap, and I had great seats. But the police came out with billy clubs like halfway through the concert, and they lined up in front of the crowd. And the crowd, we were all having a good time. People were smoking dope openly, and the police all of a sudden, out of the blue, just started beating the hell out of. Somebody gave a signal. I don't know if they blew a whistle. Started beating the hell out of people, kids. And then once the band saw what was going on, they stopped playing, and Robert Plant finally said, "Fuck the pigs." He threw his mic down, and the band walked off. As in the concert and the fight really picked up then.
yeah.
Then it turned into a riot.
So
That's
that
all
was,
right.
but I love Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
part of the reason I'm mostly deaf today.
But we've had good dialogue here so far. All right, next one. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I would be a great healer. 'Cause my goal in life is to uplift and inspire, to comfort and heal, and inspire everybody I can to wake up to the fact that we all have a nonstop flow, a river of creative fire flowing through us. Society tries to bleed that out of us, and we got to deprogram ourselves. That's our number one thing we got to do.
I hear you. Give me a living person that, celebrity-wise, that if you were stuck in an elevator, you would want to be stuck in an elevator with this person.
Well, you know,
Right now, who
There-
fancies you?
Bob Dylan. No,
Oh,
Bob
that's it?
Dylan.
Okay.
Bob Dylan he's the Homer of modern times.
Yeah.
He's always been like my favorite, and he is a poet. I'm glad he won the Nobel Prize. He deserved it. I don't care what any academics say. You know, I've been in the academic scene myself, and I just like I have no.
Okay.
90% of academia is pure bullshit, and but Bob Dylan is just. I mean, there's no other singer, songwriter, musician. I got some other favorites out there, Leonard Cohen, and there are
I only need one.
plenty of others. But anyway, all right.
Because it wouldn't be a rapid fire.
All right. This
What
is
about-
This
yeah,
is rapid.
Pet peeve during one of your poetry gigs. What's driving you crazy?
I just the pet peeve is not a poet. This isn't related to poetry peeves.
Okay.
But I have an issue with, and it's really an issue. You know, I've not only been an athlete all my life. I love sports, and I've coached as well. And I would coach when I coached young people. I would say, like the first day of practice, nobody's going to complain on this team. And it was a positive talk, but it was a straight on, no bullshit talk. And I said, I don't want anybody coming to me telling me you got a problem unless a bone is sticking through your skin. And then you can wait till the end of practice. And then it's and the kid's eyes just go wide open. So like people, who complain and whine, weaklings, suck it up. We become a nation of fucking weaklings. And we need to suck it up and develop our willpower and see and realize our damn dreams and become the person we always wanted to be. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it.
All right. If you had access to a time machine and you can go anywhere in the past to observe, not to change anything, just to observe, where would you go? I know there's probably whatever. You narrowed it down to 100.
You don't play around, man.
Give me one. Just one place. And you know what? I'll ask the same question on the next 10 podcasts we do, and you can come up with give me 10.
It'd be different every time.
Yeah.
I guess I'd say Woodstock.
Oh,
Because I didn't make it. I was doing something else.
all right.
I was doing something else fun.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
I watched it as soon as the movie came out. I was there.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, oh, my God.
All right. These last three, to me, are the most important three questions in the world, to me.
Uh-huh.
First two are yes or no. Just give me yes or no.
Okay.
The last one, give me an answer in 2 sentences or less. One, is there a God? It's a yes or no question. He can't.
See,
I know you can't.
this is why I don't do surveys. I don't do questionnaires.
Look, Ron, it's
here's
my podcast.
No, it is your, and I have great honor and respect for your podcast.
Love
So
you, brother.
here's my answer. My answer is, I believe in the creative forces of the universe, and I believe in reincarnation. I believe in the spirit realm, and I commune with the spirit realm nonstop, all the time. I've had too many experiences to not believe in it. And the more we believe in synchronicity, the more we find it occurring in our lives. It happens all the time. And so the more we're aware that we have a sixth sense that is as strong as our bones and our muscles and our minds, then the more fun and interesting our lives will be.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
I guarantee if I would have said, what is 2 + 2? He would say 4 and explain in 30 parts why it was 4. All right, number 2, are we alone in the universe?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Oh, well, that's short and sweet. And 3, what happens when we die?
We just walk through the veil into another realm of existence. And we still have the ability to commune with folks here, just as we have the ability to commune with folks who have crossed over.
Very cool. Ron, thanks so much for hanging
You're
out
welcome.
with me, man.
You're welcome.
My friend.
It's been fun.
Yeah, we'll
It's been
have
fun.
to do it again.
Thank you.
And my man Cameron.
Thank you, Cameron.
David,
Thank
hanging
you.
out.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff.
Thank you.
Very good stuff. We'll have to do it again.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
A recurring
Okay. All right.
nightmare, dream, whatever.